Hello, Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, we're going to discuss about the circulation of cerebrospinal fluid (CSF). So, first of all, let's discuss about the cavities present in the brain. So, actually, when a neural tube is formed, so neural tube has two parts: one a central hollow canal in its walls. The wall form the spinal cord, the mass of the spinal cord and that of the brain, while the central hollow canal form the central canal of the spinal cord as well as cavities of the brain. Out of these, the cavities of the brain include two lateral ventricles, and a third ventricle, a fourth ventricle, and as well as subarachnoid space. So now, what is the purpose of these cavities? इन cavities का क्या purpose, क्या मकसद है? So the purpose of these cavities is to accommodate space for the circulation of the CSF. कि जो CSF है उसकी circulation के लिए जगह मुहैया करी. ठीक है. So in today's video we will discuss about the circulation of the CSF, that how is CSF formed and how it is circulated in these cavities in the brain. So first of all, CSF is a clear colorless fluid that has about same composition as the plasma with some of the exceptions. It contains glucose, it contains proteins, it contains electrolytes, it contains the lymphocytes. So now how it is formed? So initially it is formed in the choroid plexus. Now first of all, you can see these cavities. There are cavities. Now first of all, you can see these cavities, this one and this one. These are the two lateral ventricles, while this one is the third ventricle, you can see here, and while this one is the fourth ventricle. The two lateral ventricles are connected with the third ventricle through these foramens, which are called foramen of Monro or interventricular foramen, while the third ventricle is then connected with the fourth ventricle through this duct, which is called cerebral aqueduct or aqueduct of Sylvius. Then the fourth ventricle is connected with the central canal of the spinal cord as well as with the subarachnoid space, which we will discuss in the next slide, through three foramens. These are two lateral and one median foramen, and these two lateral are called foramen of Leschka, and the median foramen is called foramen of Magendie. So these were the ventricles. Now let's discuss about the circulation of the CSF. Now here is the cerebrospinal fluid circulation. So actually the CSF is filtered from the circulation in the choroid plexus. And what is choroid plexus? Choroid plexus is simply the vessels, the capillaries of the blood which contain actually the CSF, from where the CSF is drained. So over here you can see that these are the choroid plexus. The choroid plexus are present in the lateral ventricle 2, and the third ventricle 2, and in the fourth ventricle 2. So choroid plexus are present at three places, and at these three places the total CSF is produced, and the normal amount of the CSF is about 150 ml, out of which 125 ml circulate in the subarachnoid space, while the remaining 25 circulate in the ventricles. Okay, so now let's discuss how it is circulated. So initially it is produced in the choroid plexus. Then from the choroid plexus it drains into the lateral ventricles, and these are the lateral ventricles. Then from the lateral ventricle it drains into the third ventricle through this foramen, which is called foramen of Monro. So it comes like this. Then from the third ventricle it goes into the fourth ventricle through this pathway, which is called cerebral aqueduct. Then from the third ventricle it goes into the fourth ventricle through this cerebral aqueduct, and then from the fourth ventricle it goes into subarachnoid space through three foramens, in which two are lateral, which are called foramen of Leschka, and one is median, which is called foramen of Magendie. So over here you can see these are at this position there are the foramen of Leschka, while at this position there is a foramen of Magendie. Then the CSF travel in the subarachnoid space over here like this, and also downward around the spinal cord in this way. Okay, and then after this finally talking about its draining back into the circulation. So then in the arachnoid villi, at this position, you can see over here at this position arachnoid villi, it drains back into the dural venous sinuses, in which the first one is the superior sagittal sinus, and there are the inferior sagittal sinus. So I'm going to discuss that in the next slide. So over here we discuss that CSF initially drain from the choroid plexus into the lateral ventricle, then to the foramen of Monro it drains into the third ventricle, then to the Sylvian aqueduct and to the fourth ventricle, and then to the foramen of Leschka and the foramen of Magendie and to the subarachnoid space, and then at the arachnoid villi it drains into the sinuses, dural venous sinuses, which include interconnected network of sinuses. So I'm going to discuss in the next slide. Then at the arachnoid villi, the CSF drains back into the circulation through the dural venous sinuses, and which include superior serratal sinuses, inferior serratal sinuses. So first of all, talking about superior serratal sinus, so the CSF flows in the superior serratal sinus, then comes at the confluence of the sinuses, then it goes through the right transverse sinus, and then through the sigmoid sinus, and then into the interjugular vein. In the same way, it also goes in the inferior serratal sinus, then in the left, then in the transverse sinus, and then in the left left transverse sinus, and then to the sigmoid sinus, and then into the interjugular vein. So the CSF drains from the arachnoid villi into the superior sagittal sinus and inferior sagittal sinus, and then through the right and left transverse sinus, and then into the sigmoid sinus, and then into the interjugular vein, from where it goes into the brachiocephalic vein. And then the brachiocephalic vein finally forms the superior vena cava, and then the superior vena cava finally drains into the right atrium of the heart. So this was all about CSF circulation. See you next time.